Venom: The Last Dance. Oh my god. How do I even start with this movie? I really was not excited about this movie, okay? I don't like any of the other Venom movies. Usually with Marvel movies, I try to see them on the Thursday night preview, right? Just because I gotta see them before all the spoilers come out. I work at a theater. It's kind of my thing, right? And I enjoy Marvel. I want to talk about them, do my spoiler review, have that up on Friday, right? For you guys. So I don't know. But to this one, I really couldn't muster any form of excitement or energy. Even the worst Marvel movies that look the worst to me, or just don't look interesting, or don't even look good, or have my concerns about, I can still sit my ass in that theater when the movie's about to start and get a little bit excited. This one I could not, and it's just because those last two Venom movies were just so bad, and Sony's really ruined any goodwill that they had with those Venom movies, I think. Because I think there's some people who enjoyed those movies that kind of had some goodwill, but then you see shit like Morbius and Madam Web, and you're just like, oh, nope, you flush that fucking goodwill down the toilet. But I was also just curious about this one. They said it was the last one, which, bullshit. But let's talk about this movie. So, might be one of the most frustrating comic book movies I've ever seen. Not because I ever thought it was going to be good, but this is one of those comic book movies I don't understand how the technical problems of this movie happened. There's so much bad ADR, awkward sound mixing, like there's parts where certain sound effects felt like they're in the wrong spot. Some of the music felt like it wasn't mixed quite right, or it was mixed wrong. Like, that was the whole movie to me. There were so many sequences, especially throughout the first hour. I was like, Venom's supposed to be louder in this scene, and this scene he's quieter, and it's just like, it was really fucking awkward. And I don't know how that happened. Like, that wasn't a thing in the other Venom movies I noticed, but it's a problem here, and it's very weird. And I don't understand that. The visual effects in this movie were also worse than the last two Venom movies. Venom actually looked really bad in some sequences, especially in that dance scene that you're seeing in the trailers. Like, that scene is already kind of goofy in the trailer, but now it's more goofy in this movie, and it's really poorly shot and put together. And this movie has so many weird editing decisions that were just like, what? Like, why is the film edited like that? There's a scene at the beginning of this movie with Eddie in a bar, and he's throwing stuff all over his Venom, and you're like, why is it edited that way? Why is the sound mixing like that? Like, you're like, what? And then it's just like, okay. So I'm going to do spoilers for this, because you're going to see it anyways. Let's be real. That's what I do with Marvel movies. If you're new with my channel, I don't play around. I just do the spoilers, because everybody's going to see these movies. Let's talk about. So basically, the plot of this movie, if you could call it a plot, is that Noel wants Venom because somehow him and Eddie got linked because he died, and he saved Eddie's life, and that created a key that will free Noel from some place that he is. And that's the biggest problem right there. So Noel's the main villain of this movie, but it doesn't really make any sense that he's the main villain of this movie, because basically all he does is sit on his ass the whole movie. See, what would have been better throughout this movie is if Venom was being hunted down by this other symbiote, he doesn't know why, and at the end of the movie you find out that it's related to Noel, and that's the stinger for another Venom movie. But it being Noel, number one, you don't see Noel other than a few moments in this movie. You don't see his face. You get tiny glimpses of what he looks like. You don't know where he is. You know he's in prison somewhere. And he's just kind of sitting on his ass. It's like, what the fuck does any of this mean? Noel's a really cool character in the comics, from what I understand. I don't read all the comics and shit, but like, great, Noel's a great character in this comics, but knowing him in this movie, Andy Serkis did a pretty good job voicing Noel and gave a nice voice to him, but it really doesn't fucking matter when the character is just nothing. He's just a character that's sitting on his ass, and then his little minions that he's sending after Venom are not threatening in any way. Their design is terrible. The CGI on them is terrible. It was really bizarre, and so that's most of the movie. And I don't understand what this thing is, that how Venom got linked to this thing that makes him want to hunt. It's really convoluted. Doesn't make a lot of sense at all. Like, it was really just fucking confusing, and just not very well thought out or put together. I'm like, what is this? Like, how is this happening? And there's that, and then, and then most of the movie, Eddie's just going from place to place. Like, at one point, I thought they were going to New York, but then they end up going to Vegas, and then they get captured in Vegas, and then they're at Area 51, and there's this side quest with this family that has no business being in the movie. There's no reason this family needs to be at Area 51. Like, what the fuck is happening here? And then, like, there's that, and yeah, I mean, it just was really bizarre, and there was just so many things made to make the movie feel longer, whatever. And also, I think the worst part about this movie, I think general audiences are not going to be really into this. Venom's barely in the movie, because most of the plot is about Venom not wanting to reveal himself because Noel will find him. But then Venom does kind of fuck around a lot in this movie. Venom is an asshole in this movie, most of the movie. Like, because he doesn't want to fight this thing that Noel sent after him. He nearly kills Eddie jumping out of an airplane. Bitch. There's a sequence where he knows that Noel's going to capture him and find him. But he still turns into Venom, does the little dance with Mr. Chen, makes sure they get captured. It's just like, what? And also there's sequences that felt like there was supposed to be something more, where Venom and Eddie are trying to escape from these military people you see in the trailer, and one of them accidentally dies, and you see that look on Tom Hardy's face, like, oh shit, I killed that person, but then that never comes up again, but kind of does. It's just like all these characters have certain storylines that kind of feel like they all go nowhere. Why is Mrs. Chen in this movie at all? She doesn't need to be, but she's here. And also the worst part about this movie is it just did not feel like a wrap-up to the trilogy. First of all, we don't see Michelle Williams' character from the first movie, and that wrap up to that storyline. We don't really see Eddie go back to his normal life until the end of the movie, and it just felt awkward the way they ended it. So there were just so many things. I'm watching this movie going, what? Why are all these things happening and the way they're happening? Like, what is this movie? I don't understand. Venom movies are not hard to write, but yet they somehow fuck them up every time. But this one is like the most confusing of just like, this is a Venom movie where Venom's not even in it. Because he has to hide like a little coward from a character who sits on his fucking ass. Like, it's just like, what? I don't understand this movie. I don't understand what they did with this movie. This movie felt like a setup for a bunch of other movies that aren't going to feature Venom. If there's rumors Venom's going to show up in Spider-Man 4, don't get it. If he does, cool, but like, fuck it. I don't know. And then the other thing I really didn't care for about this movie, last thing I want to complain about before I just get off here, because I really don't want to talk about this movie anymore, is the acting is awful in this movie. It's always been kind of awkward in these movies because the dialogue's been terrible, but you can at least count on Tom Hardy at least trying to have fun with it and be entertaining. He is fucking terrible in this movie. He is walking around like he's drunk and hungover, and there's actual multiple points he actually is hungover in the movie, but then he's like continuing to be hungover in his performance the whole time. Tom Hardy did not give a shit. The way he voiced Venom in this movie, just every ounce of Tom Hardy's performance is fucking awful. The main character is so utterly terrible, and then all the other acting is pretty bad as well because they're just kind of there. It's just an awful movie. Like, why is this movie the way it is? It would have been really easy to write a fun road trip movie with Venom trying to fight some villain or something, but then they just made this really clunky, overly complicated movie that was 2 hours long almost. For what reason? Like, it didn't need to be that long. Nothing here worked. It was just awful.